What type of music do you listen to? This is random, I know.
Well, everything.
Okay.
This could be a really long story if you want.
Okay, well, I'm actually curious. I mean, not like a podcast question. I'm just curious.
Literally everything. And the reason for that is that my parents are Jamaican.
Yeah.
So growing up, I listened to Prince Busta and a bunch of like the original sort of like reggae from Jamaica. My mom, who's also Jamaican, she's white Jamaican, poisoned me with Neil Diamond and Billy Joel and Lionel Richie. So I have that bubble, but I have 4 sisters and 2 brothers.
Okay.
Who are a lot older than me. I have a sister that's 18 years older than me. My closest sibling is 9 years older than me. So those 4 of them went to high school together in the early to late 80s.
Okay.
So one brother was into Rat and Scorpions and all the hair metal stuff, Judas Priest. My other brother was into Pink Floyd and Yes. My sister was into Sex Pistols, from Sex Pistols, the Culture Club, actually.
Whoa.
And then my other sister was into New Wave.
Whoa.
So that's what I had as a kid. And then obviously when I turned, I'm 41.
Yep.
So right when I was coming into that sort of meaty part of the curve, you're 14 to 17, when you sort of like find your own music, was when grunge hit.
Nice.
So I was right at that Appetite for Destruction, Nevermind, Pearl Jam 10 is kind of, so honestly, like I still play to this day. I play drums, guitar, and sing. I do none of them very well, but we're in a dad band.
Nice. Hell yeah. Dad bands all day.
Yeah,
I love it.
We specialize in 40th-year-old birthday parties. So if you know anyone who wants some mediocre musicians to dress up in their favorite rock characters, we're the guys.
That's too funny.
Our band name's Quiver. Look us up.
Quiver. There you go. Plug. I love it. Well, I was going to open up and be like, because I was trying to find something. The angle I was trying to take was, like Body Energy Club was so ahead of its time, so ahead of the curve and all this type of stuff. And I was trying to think of like what else culturally was ahead of the curve. And then I was like, Body Energy Club was like making soul beats like Kanye West was in 95. And that's the only thing I could think of. And I'm like, Rick wouldn't get it. And I was like, maybe he would. Let me ask him one type of music. And then he just went off into about your whole family. I loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
So you guys were like making soul beats in 95. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, 2002.
Yeah. But so you were making juices in 2002 and smoothies in 2002 and supplements in 2002, where it really only got popularized a decade later.
Probably around there. I mean, I think that places started so our smoothie bar would have opened, actually, because we opened the store in 2002. Our smoothie bar would have opened and we did call it a juice bar at the time, would have opened in 2004.
Right.
But realistically, the next people on the scene would have probably been around that 2010, 2011.
That's what I was thinking. Juice
Truck comes to mind, who are really good friends of mine.
Zach was on the podcast, and
oh, nice.
Yeah, Zach's awesome.
So from that kind of year on is when everybody sort of started springing up here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah. And
truthfully, at the time, it wasn't even part of our business model. Like when we first opened, we primarily did supplements. We opened it up basically to sample the products that we were selling. So if we broke even on the smoothies, great. But if people liked what was in the product, then, hey, we happen to have that protein right over here on the shelf.
With better,
great. Like it was just a good cross sell. It was a loss leader, like oil changes at a car dealership, right? Then it kind of became its own beast. And now, depending on the location, it's 50-50.
Wow.
The cafe component to products, and that varies based on location, 70-30, 60-40 on either side. And then we do have a standalone one now as well too, inside Equinox Fitness. They've been a great partner for us as well too. So that business model does stand on its own, but we are more of a hybrid overall as far as our overarching model goes. Yeah,
you guys are. So that's when I'm at all the time, is that one. It's right by my work, so it's perfect. Okay. You guys have been fueling lunches for me for the last 2 years. It's been great.
Nice.
Acai bowls all day. Anyways, so it kind of feeds off of each other a little bit, I think. Do you regret that model early on? Like, were there points where you're like, because you can figure out a loss leader early. Like you can say this model like, it's okay, we'll lose here and we'll win over here. But Body Energy Club then is not what Body Energy Club is now. Was it a point where like, oh, we're just losing too much on this?
No.
Like you had to open extra space and everything.
Yeah, but it was cheap at the time, all things considered.
Space was cheap.
Yeah, because it was only, we were 500 square feet at the time on Davie Street. It was another 450 is what we took. So it wasn't that big of it was a risk, but it wasn't that big of a risk. Worst case scenario, the smoothie bar didn't work out and we just cave it in and we sell more products, right?
Nice.
Where we were at the time was there weren't a ton, if any, hybrid stores like ours. Yeah. There was your traditional old school, like a nutrition house kind of health food store.
Right.
It's actually kind of hard I think for a lot of people to sort of rewind and think about that industry in that sense, but that's what it was at the time. So you had your hardcore, like I go to the gym and, your heavy sports supplements, and then your separate brands were your natural health category. And then cafes were completely separate from that.
Right, not even close.
Yeah, or virtually non-existent. So to have it a one-stop shop, basically, for anyone who was in the family, and really kind of geared around average Joe and Jane, more than that traditional hardcore supplement user, was kind of the secret recipe that the vision that we saw and what we tried out, and it has always been... there was never a point in time where we were kind of like, I don't know if this was a good idea.
Yeah, well, great strategic planning. I guess that's all I can say.
Yeah, luck is another thing. Timing is another thing as well too. I don't think there was no real genius to the idea. I think there's a lot of factors that come into the overall success of it.
For sure. That in mind, if you look at 2019, 2020, what if we think about timing and if we think about, hopefully having a little bit of luck and having the strategic planning, where's the white space now? Because you guys just clearly attacked and dominated a white space in the last 2 decades. What do you see personally? Just aside from Body Energy Club, where's the white space in the health and fitness industry?
Health and fitness or retail in general. You could look at both of those things and kind of go, it's under attack, or there's a monumental shift going on.
In terms of moving away from brick and mortar?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Our bread and butter has always been brick and mortar. And for the most part, the cafe concepts in our stores insulate us from any sort of outside threats in that sense. Also our own brand is a large part of that. So we've really been proactive about what products do we want to see and use, or what products do we like? How can we clean them up? Natural sweeteners, no artificial flavors. We've always kind of championed that with regards to partner brands that we had. So now under our own brand, that's really been a driving force for us as well too. And then with regards to our model, we're based around convenience. So we want to be in locations where it makes sense for people to actually come to a brick and mortar location, rather than, I can just order this online and get it shipped to my house.
Right.
Smoothies are tricky to do that with anyway, but it's all too easy at most of our locations just to either pop in on the way to work, at lunch, or on their way home, right?
Guilty.
Yeah, and then the customer service component. I think in any business, now it's really coming down to, that's the number one differentiator, and kind of the last way that you can differentiate yourself from your competitors, and which is great. It's great for a business, because that's the fun part, is making people happy. It's great for the consumer, and so that's kind of where we're focused on.
Right, customer or guest experience, customer experience. How do you differentiate yourself? There's we had, for instance, Scott Marcasio is the CEO of Myo Detox on, and he's like, well, I asked him a similar question. He's like, we have GEMs, which are guest experience managers, which is just a front desk person, right? But they glorify the heck out of that position and are just like, you are literally the most important part. You need to see a person as soon as they come in to the moment they leave and just make sure they're good. That's your responsibility. And they have this, like, they just champion the heck out of it. And that's because he said the exact same thing around, like, listen, that's the only way you can make a difference at this point. Like, it's one of the last ways to differentiate in a situation. I mean, but they're physiotherapy, they're RMT. So in a situation that's retail, how do you really make that difference in guest experience?
Well, I mean, a number of different ways. So, product selection would be on the hard goods side. Knowledgeable staff, fun culture, fun environment, and then just making sure that the customer's happy when they leave. Like, we have elements in place to make sure that nobody leaves unhappy, which is like, it's tricky to do when you're making 600 smoothies a day, right?
Yeah.
But we try our best, and at the end of the day, if anything kind of goes awry, we make it up to people. It's just a focus for us overall.
Right.
So it's something that we prioritize above and beyond everything else, and try to make it as personal as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean,
look, like, I know that we have a number of different locations, and we have a mom and pop route. Like, we're a small business that now has, we'll have 12 locations here, 2 in the States. But myself and my business partners work, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not something that's kind of like outsourced at this point. We're still very much a hands-on mom and pop operation, even though we've scaled to such a size.
So that's maybe one of the things I find the most interesting about you and how you've built the entire business is, you said you were very hands-on in the early days and doing literally everything because you had to.
Yeah.
And you're still very hands-on and doing everything, jack of all trades. And I'm someone who I like that approach, because I'm just really curious. I'm just like, I want to know how that works. I want to know how, okay, well, which products do you put where, and why is this smoothie first on the list versus that smoothie? Or what about the back end? What's the, how much do your stores cannibalize each other when you open another one? Like, whether it's ops or finance, or like, I'm like, that's cool, and that's cool. And in our world, it's kind of like, or in the world now as a young professional coming up, it's kind of like, well, no, pick your niche and go. That's how you win. What would you say to that now, with you clearly having success being a jack of all trades?
That was a very,
I don't know. Was it a question?
Broad,
I don't know.
Yeah, broad sweeping question. So, I mean, well, with regards to our locations, I've lived, other than, like, I moved out of downtown Vancouver a year and a half ago, but other than that, I lived downtown 17 years. And the interesting thing about Vancouver in particular is that there are so many little 4-block bubbles that people live in. So you can be in Yaletown, Gastown, Cole Harbour, all of those. We thought we had saturated downtown when we had 3 locations, and what we realized that wasn't even remotely the case, because there are all those little pockets that people kind of live and work, and their lives sort of revolve around. So the cannibalization, although there has been some, has been minimal with regards to the locations that we have thus far. And moreover, I think it offers convenience to all of our customers, so that if you do live in Yaletown but work in Gastown, there's a location for you wherever you are, right?
You guys have West Georgia, Gastown, Robson, Davie?
Yep. Cambion 12th, I guess it's over the bridge, but
okay. All right.
Waterfront Station we just opened as well, too.
That's right. Now, how about you personally? You said yourself you're working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
That comes with self-employment, though.
Right.
I mean, that's just kind of, you always need to be available from silly stuff. Like, if the alarm goes off at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, it's your phone number that's on file that gets called to go, hey, just so you know, the back motion sensor went. That's the reality for a ton of people who are in, who are either entrepreneurs, who are self-employed. So what's interesting, actually, I think, and we sort of chatted about yourself and your peer group, is that desire and almost reality, or the vision for opportunity seems to be quite popular within your demographic, far less so than mine. Absolutely. When I was growing up, pretty much everybody went to university, got a degree in sociology. From there, went to teachers college, and then became a teacher or whatever kind of categorized profession that was there. Which, for better or for worse, for myself, never really, that shoe didn't fit.
Yeah.
Now looking at sort of the people that work for me or guys like yourself, I see people viewing the world in a much different, through a much different lens. And I don't know how much of that, I haven't really thought about it a ton, but I don't know how much of that is out of necessity or out of the fact where there's been a rejection to that traditional model. And maybe it's a combination of both. I don't know. You probably, I'm asking you questions now, so you might be able to answer that for me, but it's far more common now than it used to be, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll digress and say, there you go again, doing cool things before it was cool, essentially. And that's we chatted about this earlier as well, the unique position that you occupy just in terms of age, right? Bridging two gaps and putting, being able to communicate prior knowledge from the generation that are now 50, 60, 70, 80, and now bring that down to the millennials, and bridging that gap there. Very interesting as well, as it pertains to creating a lifestyle of entrepreneurship and doing a million things at once. I also think that like we live in a microcosm, so we may have similar paradigms as it is approaches as we have similar paradigms as it pertains to business. But I think outside of our little microcosm of entrepreneurship and business leadership, I do see a lot of people still taking the traditional route, man. There's a lot of humans out there, and there's a lot of people that are like, that's cool, and I know that's popular. That's really not for me, because like it's scary, man. Like,
well, there's safety in that.
There's safety in that traditional
route, without a doubt. And maybe it's just the people. Maybe I have a skewed perspective on it as well too, just because of the people who I surround myself with tend to be people that have taken a chance and started their own business and kind of got out on their own. And those are the people that you're bumping into and brushing shoulders with. I think Vancouver in and of itself actually is a bit of a unique city in that sense, particularly in our industry. Because if you look at the number of brands that have been born here in the health food industry, and not even just health food actually, but even lifestyle clothing, those worlds are connected. And Vancouver seems to be sort of a global capital for that, whether it's Lululemon, Mountain Equipment Co-op, Vega, like all of those things are lifestyle oriented brands that have all come from here. So it's a bit of a unique city in that sense, cool. for better or for worse. Like, I don't think there's any worse than that. I think it's for better.
I think,
take back the worst part. Sorry, just figure of speech.
Yeah, totally. I think a lot of people don't even understand the companies that have been birthed out of here. So here's my take on that.
We're spoiled.
Yeah,
in that sense, without a doubt.
We're not like some small town in Southwest Michigan. You know what I'm saying? Like we're a Pacific Northwest hub. And like, we don't crown that. That's one of my, and people that listen to this, I'm rambling now, but people that listen to this know this is one of my qualms is like EA's from here. Mountain Equipment Co-op, Lululemon. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's a very forward-thinking city. I remember, I moved here for the first time in 1999.
Right.
I worked here for a year, and then I moved home because I wanted to finish school, but at the time it wasn't really feasible to live in Vancouver as a 19-year-old and go to school. So I moved home. And I distinctly remember when I went home, I was like, here's my plan. I'm going to go home. I'm going to finish college, and then I'm moving back to Vancouver. And people were like, why? And I was like, I don't know. Like, it's a stunning place to live, first of all. But other than that, the place just reeked of opportunity.
Totally does.
I remember as a 19-year-old kid going home and telling people that. Like, it just felt like anything was possible here for whatever reason. And at the time, I'd never really lived anywhere else. Well, I mean, outside my hometown, London, Ontario, and I'd lived in Toronto for a little bit, but there was just an energy here that I sort of tapped into, where I just knew immediately that I wanted to come back. So much so that I actually never finished college. So
hey, shout out to you.
Yeah.
No, I love it. You definitely fit that self-hired definition. That's for sure. I think it still feels like that, like crazy. And I also, there's like a taboo around that can develop. Like, for instance, like if you're in the entertainment industry and you're like, I'm going to go to LA because there's opportunity. And then you go to LA and every waiter or waitress is an actor. And you're like, oh man, like it's kind of saturated over here. I mean, Vancouver still feels super ripe. Like Vancouver still feels super ripe. Like I think there's a lot of entrepreneurship and new businesses being built all the time, and that culture is really cool. But there's also there's just this level of balance to it. It doesn't feel like it's been spoiled. It doesn't feel like, oh, it's a surfing city. It's a mountain city. It's like, no, it's all these things combined together. It's so diverse in that sense. And as well in the businesses that pop out, like whether it's video games, whether it's lifestyle, whether it's there's some great financial institutions coming out of here as well. Like there's a lot of cool shit being built here in all industries. It seems to be one of those spots. I think it has a lot to do with the geographical actual makeup of it, that seems to create innovation. My question to you would be, how come, I don't feel as if Vancouver has a collective identity. I feel like Seattle has a collective identity. I feel like Portland has a collective identity. I don't feel like Vancouver has a collective identity. Do you feel that same way? And if so, why?
Well, I haven't thought about it specifically. However, I would say this. There's very few people, I shouldn't say very few people because that's not true, but there's an element of Vancouver where no one's actually from Vancouver. Not everybody, but a lot of people come here from other places. So there's a ton of people from Toronto, Montreal, all over the place. So you're getting everyone else. I'm going to go to the Leaf game tonight. And I'm a hockey fan first and foremost, but I am also a Leaf fan. And I almost guarantee you the chant in Rogers Arena tonight is going to be "Go Leafs, go." So Vancouver fights that, or has to fight that. Vancouver's also very insecure about that as well, too. So it's a young city in a sense, but it's transient. So I think that's why quite possibly there isn't that sort of collective identity that perhaps those other cities kind of have. And yeah, you're right in the sense that people from Vancouver as a city, I shouldn't say people, but I could see them sort of being either the middle child, kind of trying to elbow their way into the table going, hey, what about me?
Yeah. And it's also a thing well, I didn't grow up here either, but if someone I knew lived in Maple Ridge, they lived in Vancouver. If someone lived in Delta, they lived in Vancouver. If someone lived in Richmond, they lived in Vancouver, right? And I feel like if you grew up even in East Van and someone says, hey, where are you from? You say, I'm from East Van. You don't say I'm from Vancouver.
Interesting. Yeah.
You don't claim that. Or if you're from Kitsilano, you say you're from Kitsilano.
Yeah.
If you're from the West End, you say you're from the West End, which is ridiculous. So it's where do I have to be born or grow up to say I'm from Vancouver on Cambie and Pender, so it's I just don't feel that. And it feels like there's a lack of that. And I feel like we could get a whole lot more done if there was some cohesiveness in that. I don't know. Maybe you can speak to it a little bit you said you had a great relationship with the juice truck. Those guys are awesome over there in your space, in the health and wellness space, the supplement space. I don't see another body energy club. Maybe I'm wrong. But is there a collective community around that? Are you guys actively working together, or are you guys isolated? And if so, who are the players there?
No, our philosophy from the get-go, even when we had our one store on Davie Street, was that if our competitor was doing well, that meant that the industry was doing well, right, which meant that we were going to do well. That's kind of the way that we viewed that. And even though, while in some sense the juice truck is a competitor to us, they're also a partner in actual fact on a business sense, but also as far as championing the industry and health and all of that kind of stuff. So that's always been our perspective for the most part. It hasn't been, someone else is doing the same thing as us, let's take them out at the knees kind of mentality, which I think is short-sighted. I think if you start focusing on others in that negative sense, instead of just focusing on yourself and what you do and where you want to be, I think it's a detriment to yourself to not do that. So,
yeah, we've taken a similar approach here with the podcast and with Self Hired as well. Is there's a bunch of really cool people doing a bunch of stuff that's isolated, and they're kind of just in their own little microcosm. Let's just find a way to champion them. Not necessarily to bring them together, that would be great. But let's just champion them, with you here, with, all of our guests. It's just holy shit, you're doing cool stuff. Like, this is so awesome. Nobody knows about it. And the city isn't behind you in a way that I feel that they should be. And I felt a lot of that. Like, for instance, like you have a Seth Rogen, for instance, right? No one knew about Seth Rogen when Seth Rogen was doing, open mics. You know, no one knew about that.
It's a bit of a Canadian thing, though, don't you think, in general?
Absolutely. Like,
right?
like
There's that whole thing where people have to become successful in the States
for us
before
to
Canadians
crown them.
really kind of get behind them.
And
right?
it's like, oh my gosh, a great parallel there. It's like, when did you open in, you're in West Hollywood, right?
We're in Hollywood
Hollywood?
and Vine, and
Okay.
West Hollywood. So we would open Hollywood. Sorry, I'm terrible
It's
with
fine.
chronology. 4 years ago, and
Sure.
then West Hollywood would be. So my daughter's about to turn 3. It would have been West Hollywood. We opened 2.5 years ago.
When do you think, okay, so let's just take that, put it to the side. When do you think Body Energy Club got cool in Vancouver? Because if you didn't know, you're really cool right now.
Oh, well, thank you. That's a weird thing to think about. I have no idea.
Like, when did you really feel the wind at your back in the community?
I think it would be after our 3rd location.
When was that?
So we opened our Robson Street store in 2010. And honestly, it was more of a strategic move than anything. We were sort of trying to mark our territory downtown more than anything. And it seemed like a viable location. And it sort of, we had one on each side of town was kind of the plan at the time. And that actually became our busiest location.
Nice.
Completely without planning and forethought of that actually happening. And still to this day, it's our busiest location.
Wow, really though?
So I think once we opened that 3rd location and we realized, hey, I think we realized we really had something going for us. But I don't know. It's a weird thing my business partners and I will still talk to this day, and it seems weird that we have as many locations as we do. There's a little bit of imposter syndrome, I think, that comes along with that, right? Where we don't sort of see ourselves as being like, wow, look how successful we are, which I think is good because there's still a little bit. Fear is incredibly motivating.
Yes.
When it comes to making ends meet and getting by and being a success. So that's, I think, still having a little bit of that is another reason why we're doing well. We have not become complacent in any way, shape, or form.
You guys are very much attacking.
Yeah.
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 Does not feel like you guys are playing defense at all.
No.
Yeah.
It would be nice to be able to rest at some point.
With a tear in his eye.
Yeah. And you know what? Truthfully, like I feel selfish having that conversation because my business partner actually works like 20 times more than any human that I know.
Wow.
So he's really kind of the driving force behind Body Energy, and he's a couple of years older than me. I was 23 when we started. He's 26, and he's been a big brother, a family member, a great role model, and someone that I've kind of looked up to and been able to lean on, and for better or for worse. And we've had a really good working relationship. Like it's funny, you probably do this at work as well too. And lots of people do, where you talk and spend more time with a colleague than you do your own wife, right? Like it's kind of a running joke. So it's funny how things work out like that.
Yeah, your work wife, your work husband.
Yeah. So and there's been ups and downs along that road as well too. So
I'm really
17 years is a long time.
17 years is a very long time.
Right. So
a very long time. There's a million directions I want to go off of that, but let's do this because we're in a analogous situation here, and I think a lot of people that listen to this we're like, you're not a solo entrepreneur anymore. You've got a small team, and you're riding with that small team, and you're like, hey, here we go. Let's attack. Let's go. Let's do this. And whether that's 2 people, whether that's 6 people, whether that's 10 people, you're still kind of in that growth and that building phase or whatever. I'm just really interested if we could just transport time a little bit, and maybe you could reflect a little bit on who was in that early team in those, 2004 to 2000 or 2002 to 2004 or 5, who was really in there and how did you guys interact? I'm really curious to see what was the successful formula there.
Yeah, so Dom and Phil had opened the Dom had opened the store originally, and he was working with Phil, and they literally needed someone to come in. I started unpacking boxes 20 hours a week. I was the only employee.
Wow.
And if we had a shipment come in, then I worked. If we didn't have a shipment, then I was down at Kitts playing beach volleyball. And that was the first summer that I lived here, not really knowing what it was going to turn into. There was no master plan at the time. And again, it's tricky to sort of rewind to that, but that was literally the reality of where we were at the time. And I think first and foremost, and this would be, if I had any sort of like light wisdom, which I don't really consider it much, but what we had was a common passion for the industry. So we loved what we did. We loved the industry. And that was the thing in common that kind of gave us the passion and drive to do what we do, and to build and to do the long hours that 3 people in the store. Those guys were opening at 10 a.m. and closing at 10 p.m. 7 days a week.
Right.
5 years in a row before I saw either of them take a vacation, really, right? So you have to be able to be committed to that and really love what you do. Like, so I have 2 kids now, right? And even though they're very young, you sort of like try to future cast about, what conversations are you going to have with them at these certain like milestones that you hit. And I think that is probably one of the big takeaways for myself that I would pass down to them and go, look, what would you want to do with your life that you'd be willing to do for free? And then if you make money at it, within reason, of course, obviously I want them to be safe and be able to, but ultimately, if you can wrap your life around something like that, that is the direction that you should go. Because I've seen way too many people who went to school for X, Y, and Z, do it for 2 years, dreading going to work, sitting. I've heard stories about people sitting in the parking lot in their car, talking themselves into opening their car door and going into their day job, going, I got a wife, I got kids, I got a mortgage, I got to do this. Okay, here we go. Let me go put in my 9 hours and then come home. That's not a life, right? Yeah. So that's kind of where we were doing something that we loved. And then we kind of concocted this idea to do the smoothie bar, and that was a hit. And then we went from there.
So if for instance, year one, I'm just going to make up a scenario here. Like year one, you're going to a family Christmas, you see your uncle you haven't seen in a while, and they say, hey dude, like, what are you doing over there at Body Energy Club? Like you guys are like, you're working all the time. Like you're unpacking boxes. I see you, you're tired, but you're amped up at the same time. Like what are you guys doing over there? How are you interacting with that situation at that time? Like what was your relationship with those long hours? The just how unsure it was that there was a future, the scarcity of it all. Money wasn't flowing, like these things. How are you interacting with that situation?
Well, survival.
Yeah.
I mean, you're living downtown. You're young. You're living downtown Vancouver, and you're trying to, which even at the time was still one of the most expensive places to live.
Right.
I remember when I first moved here. I moved in with my sister, and she was on the fence whether to get a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom. Are you coming? Or are you not coming? I was like, oh, I'll come. And my parents were like, well, like what's real estate like out there? If you two are going to rent a place, maybe we can figure out how to buy a place. And I distinctly remember telling my mom and dad, Mom, Dad, there's no way, you're not going to believe it. Like a studio apartment is $90,000. It's crazy. Today,
yeah,
it's like 500, 600 grand for the same kind of place. Right.
Yeah.
So survival was key for us as far as interacting with sort of the day to day. And then hope, optimism, having fun, creating stuff. I mean, if you think about what we were doing, there's no playbook, and you don't go to school for coming up with smoothie recipes. And we were literally just, that was a creative outlet for us as well too. So there's a lot of moving parts on that we sort of enjoyed and was fun, and we saw light at the end of the tunnel. I guess we just didn't realize the tunnel was going to be this long.
Yeah. The tunnel's very long. Did you have those discussions like, hey, what if we end up doing this for 30 years?
No. No, but truthfully, we never even wanted 2 locations. It took us forever to open up our second store. We were very content with 1 location, and then an opportunity came up that we were more concerned about. There was a store that was going to be closing, and was for sale and could potentially close, and we were more concerned about a competitor buying it and taking it over and turning it to something. So we hummed and hawed for the longest time, and then the risk of a competitor opening where there was an opportunity for us to swoop in was really kind of the motivating factor. And that's how we went from 1 to 2 locations.
Okay. So I definitely want to go back to the multiple location thing, because there's a really cool conversation happening there, just from a business perspective. But what was the internal narrative you were having with yourself at that young age? You know, like, you're very well thought out. You're a dynamic, creative thinker now. You know, that probably can see into the future quite well and forecast things out. I'd be willing to bet. I'd be willing to bet. You can be humble, but I can't be humble for you, man. And so
there's a lot of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Right.
Just so you know.
Of course there was, and like I'm sure there's a lot of failures within all of that for sure. But it's like, what story were you playing in your own head at that time to convince you to go down this route? What were you saying to yourself?
Man, it's hard to remember. I mean, I think for the large part, it was, there was an opportunity. Growth is natural in any industry, and competition is a highly motivating thing as well too, right? So, where would we be had we not done that and we let a competitor take it, that location? You know, there could be 11 of those our competitors' locations in town instead of us. And a lot of it had to do with customer feedback as well too. We would get asked all the time by customers, when are we going to open up another spot? Oh, you should open up here. Oh, you should open up there. And for the longest time, our mindset was so we would have had 2 staff at that point. A lot of it was, 2 locations, twice as much work, and kind of the same amount of money, because you got to hire someone to fill in the hours when you can't be there, right? So it took us a while to sort of wrap our heads around making that decision to do the second location. And then once I think we got our feet wet in that, the third was a little easier. The fourth became a little easier. We have 6 new locations on the go right now. So I think once we got that bug and the confidence, I think,
right,
in order to do that. So
is Body Energy Club unlimitably scalable? Like how big? What's the end game? Like we've talked about this. Like we don't define our goal, our end game. What's a win? Like, what is a win? Because I can look at you right now and say, no, dude, you should just call it a day. Yeah. Just call it a day. Like, you're super successful. You've built something that's truly Vancouver's own. Like, if you would have just said, hey, dude, you're going to be here in 15 years, 17 years, you'd be like, yeah, I'm just going to call it a day at that, because that sounds amazing. Yeah. And now here you are. So what's your end?
It's an interesting question, right? I don't know. Does a win revolve around the business? I would say that it's very cool to be part of something that has become synonymous with Vancouver, become as popular as it is, as in your words, cool, even though it doesn't feel like that most days. But I don't know. I think that maybe 30-year-old Rick might have had a different answer.
Yeah.
I think 40-year-old Rick would view a win through a very different lens, and it would have more to do with personal life and I'm in a very different mindset right now, having a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old, right? Mm-hmm. They've kind of become more of sort of a mental focus with regards to wins in life.
Yeah. What was a win at 30?
It would have been global domination in our industry.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know if that's good, bad, or indifferent. But Yeah, I don't think that there hasn't been a master plan with regards to an end game and what's a win. We sort of we're strategically planning 5 years, and that end game has any number of possibilities right now that we're actively working through.
Okay.
So
bring me 5 years out.
Well, look, as with any business, so you could look at any brand other than ourselves. We could go the route of venture capital, and all of a sudden we're across the country as a standalone retail model. We could expand corporately on our own, which would take a lot longer, but that's kind of what we're doing right now. We could be bought out, any company that's out there that kind of attracts a certain amount of attention, and somebody comes in and somebody's like, hey, here, at the end of the day, everything has a price, right? So we're just open to all possibilities, and we always have been. There's no master plan with regards to like a definitive, this is the direction that they're going, this is what we want. I think we're still in the trenches very much with regards to the day-to-day. And honestly, like, we love what we do. The other element of that is that, at the age that we're at, do I want to go work for somebody else? Not really.
Nope.
Like,
especially not you.
I've done that. My business partners have done that. It's ultimately not who we are. So unless we were to have another channel to take our creativity and our drive to sort of be our own bosses and to do our own thing, we're pretty content where we are, doing what we do, right? Like honestly, it's very. I'm realizing it's rarer and rarer that for people who have had the opportunity and good fortune to be able to create a living and do what you love, work with people that you choose, all of those kind of things. So we're kind of content where we are, and that has not been lost on us, that privilege.
You're very grounded.
Try to be. Yeah.
Who's Body Energy Club's North Star? Like, is there a company out there? Because I'm trying to equate, like, if you're any sportswear company, you're like, I want to be like Nike. I want to be like Adidas. Who does Body Energy Club try to emulate and say, that's really cool, we should take some aspects of what they're doing? Or that's a direction we want to go?
I would say no one in particular. And I think that's only because we don't necessarily fall into a traditional category.
Really
We're
don't.
not a clothing store where you could look around at other clothing stores and kind of go, oh, that's kind of cool. We have so many different touch points within our own model that there's a little bit here and a little bit there, and you see people doing kind of cool and new stuff, and you're kind of like, oh, I sort of like that. It's been interesting to see that we're like that for other people.
100%.
We see a lot of people sort of looking at us and kind of doing what we do, which is the ultimate form of both flattery and frustration at times, but. We don't let stuff like that get to us for the most part. So
yeah, I listen. We talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, man. A lot of people. I want to be like Body Energy Club. I want to know. I want to figure out what juice they were drinking.
Yeah.
And that's really a lot of what this is like trying to figure out what juice you were drinking. And you're over here like, hey, listen, man, that was a fruit that existed one period in time, and you're not going to be able to get that juice anymore.
Yeah.
It's like a very special thing.
Well, yeah, and. Truthfully, like, it's, at the end of the day, I guess if we look at it this, we're in retail. So we get asked all the time, hey, I want to open up a location, or what did you guys do? And I would say that, as with any business, there's a lot of elements to it that look sexy from the outside. And then once you get behind the curtain and you realize, hey, some things are a job like anything else, right?
So breaking down boxes is a job.
Yeah, there's a ton of hard work that goes into creating that sexy veneer that people come in and are like, oh, this is neat, like and truthfully, I definitely my business partner Dom, without a doubt. He's a rare commodity, the amount of time and work and energy that he puts into the brand and the company and his heart and soul. And into it. I think it's a rarer thing than people realize, to be able to make something your life, and really kind of, and look, there's an element of being able to punch in and punch out, and your evenings and weekends are yours, and you don't have to think about your job, or, hey, the 15th of the month is coming, am I going to be able to cover payroll? Like, you're in charge of people's lives. We have 175 employees right now. So those are real stresses that a lot of people don't see in any, not just our business, but any business. When you come into a store and you buy some stuff, those are the things that we kind of, the worries and life stresses that we sort of keep us up at night for the most part.
What makes your business partner Dom so unique? How did you identify that?
I swear he has that gene where you kind of like need 4 hours of sleep or whatever that thing is. I don't know. Yeah, whatever that, and maybe that's made up, made up gene, but he's got that. And I think there's probably an unusual amount of people that are able to work at that pace that he does, and yeah, he just loves what he does that much, and is just a true workaholic. Yeah. For better or for worse. So. For better, it's an identity, right? Like, look, our for him in particular, and for us as a company, having built it up, started from scratch, and it's not a job. It really is kind of like who you become, and it's an identity more than anything. Mm-hmm.
Just taking 2 steps back there, I listen, I couldn't agree more. It is who you are, 100%. I think of Self-Fired, that's who Kevin is, and there's beauty, there's a lot of beauty in that. I've put a lot of time just kind of marinating and meditating on that. And it's like, I'm still torn. I don't have the answer of like I'm me. Like I am 100% me. I'm not a business. I'm not a thing that I do. I'm not a basketball player. I'm not a businessman. I'm not a podcaster. I'm not a whatever. Like I'm me, and I'm a culmination of all those things. And I don't necessarily want to be any one of those things, but I also want to put my heart and soul into all of them. And if I don't want to put my heart and soul into it, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, which is, I would think, well, I got a question for you. How much of that is a byproduct of sort of social media? I think it's an interesting sort of world that we're in right now, where everybody is a brand and everyone is an identity, and that becomes who a person is. Mm-hmm. That didn't exist when we started our company, or it's a recent phenomenon. And I don't have the master answer to that question, but it is a different way of viewing the world, right? So totally. What I think your sort of thoughts and feelings on that are very contemporary and far more common than you would think, right? I mean, being an Instagram
whatever,
that's a profession now.
Yeah, that's pretty. But that's the other thing too, is like I would never want to be that, because frankly, that platform owns my audience and owns my life. So there's that. But
I guess point being is that you can being yourself is a commodity now.
Yeah.
Where I struggle to see 20 years ago when we were thinking of a business, like that wasn't a thing, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. You had to create something and surround yourself with something, whether it be like a commodity. You had to create the commodity in and of itself. It wasn't the individual. Whereas now it's the individual.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I never thought of that at all. Not in the slightest, because I'm like, well, okay, if that business goes down, I don't want my identity to be completely unraveled in that. It's the same thing like in a relationship. Listen, love your girlfriend, love your significant other, but that significant other shouldn't become you. Like where it's just like, oh, it's not John, it's John and Jane. You're like, well, hold up, motherfucker, it's John, or whatever it may be, right?
That's a good exercise for everyone to have to go through, though. I think everybody does that at one point in their life, right?
Right.
Where you kind of like get lost in someone else, and then you get together, you break up, you get together, you break up. No, this time's for real.
Yeah.
And then you realize, wait a minute, I don't know who I am. Yeah. And then you sort of go on that quest. There's certain milestones like that in life that I think ultimately create make you a better person,
Right.
right? Having those experiences.
Yeah, totally, man. I think there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. Like I like to look at things and go, okay, that's the way to do it. That's the way not to do it, and build systems around that. Like that's really a failing proposition.
I saw my mom and dad got divorced when my dad was 65. He was like 3 months away from retirement, and in very dramatic fashion, which I won't get into. But anyway, it was. But what I realized at the time was that was the first time my dad had been through a breakup.
Wow.
So imagine that. Like, remember your first high school breakup and how you were devastated and crushed and like that emotional roller coaster that you went on and how shattered you were.
Yeah.
Okay, now imagine you're looking up at a parent who's 65 and you're watching them go through all of those same like emotions and feelings. And I remember going, oh, this is like, he's never experienced this before. Yeah. Something that you think was a rite of passage when you were in high school or college or whenever that sort of like tumultuous time in your life was, you realize that isn't, that's not set in stone when somebody has that experience or any other for that matter. For him to go through that at 65 and kind of like have all of those sort of high schoolish, what I would call high schoolish feelings and all that kind of thing, calling me up. How's your mother doing? It's like you're calling your best. Oh, did you see Stacy?
Did you go to
Stacy at the party?
Did you go to the movie? What did she watch? Was she 2 seats away? Was she 1 seat away? Did he have his arm around her? I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a bizarre experience. But that model applies to a lot of different things in life, right? So
yeah. No, I hear what you're saying for sure. I think. Yeah, I don't have the answer, and now I'm fucked up in my thought even more because you're like, well, your way of thinking, young Joss, is actually probably just a product of your generation, your time, and it's kind of like
it's weird though, eh?
Yeah,
because like you're significantly younger than me. If you sort of look at the window that my generation is, where I still haven't looked up the term for this, but we're that kind of weird bridge gap between the bottom of Gen X and then millennials.
Yeah.
So I sort of, I think Steve Rio actually is the first time I ever heard the phrase, but I'll credit him for it, where we're sort of the last generation to be half digital and half analog.
Right.
So we grew up, pre-internet, but we were there at a really important time in your life. Like when I got my first email account in my first year of college. So I had a Hotmail account in like 96, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
And that was a crazy thing. But point being, we're sort of like on either side of that at that gap.
Like you went a lot of your life without an email account.
100%. I remember the very, very well, like the world pre-internet, and it switched at an important time in your life. I think obviously there's people older than me that experienced that same thing, but it was well after this significant developmental stage in life, that sort of mid to late high school, early college kind of part of your life that ultimately impacts, there's a significant impact on the rest of your life, right?
It's everything. Oh my gosh.
If you were 40 at that period of time, it doesn't have as dramatic of an impact as it did for us, which affords me by happenstance, I think, an ability to kind of see the world through both lenses. So as much as I would look up to somebody that's older than me and look for advice on this, that, and the other, I sort of really try to pay attention to all of staff or people around me who are significantly younger than me, and to see how they view the world and what's important to them, and what are the new up and coming trends and all of that kind of stuff. I just think they have a lot more to offer than, I don't think my generation was viewed like that. I think that we sort of, the paradigm at the time was that we had to grow up, work hard, nose to the grindstone, and fit that 9-to-5 kind of model and template that was set by their parents, that was set by their parents post World War II, and so on and so forth, right? Whereas now that model for the most part has been completely shattered. Like, look, even this, doing a podcast out of your apartment or house or a full-on studio, that's a viable option. You can create your own path much more readily, which I think is exciting, terrifying and exciting, which is a great place to be when you can't tell the difference between the two.
That's when, that's where growth happens for sure. I mean, listen, there's almost zero marginal cost of actually it is zero marginal cost. If you have a phone, you can have a podcast on 100%. Like, it's very easy. There's hosting platforms and recording platforms, and you'll be fine. Just go. I mean, to do a couple steps up and get this far, there's a little bit of marginal cost there, and that's going to cost you a little bit. It's really not that hard. Right, it's going to take a couple thousand or whatever it is, and you're on your way. It doesn't take that much, which creates a generation of creators for sure. A generation of people like me, they're like, I want to do everything.
Well, there's far more creative outlets now than there ever was before.
Were.
Yeah, which is fantastic.
But I think a big
that's
amazing.
We're all the beneficiaries of that, without a doubt.
Yeah, we are. But I think, you're going to come at it from a different perspective. I'm coming at it. Like, you're coming at it from a perspective of, you have a duality in thinking of, like, I can think in analog, I can think in digital. I can't think in analog. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I had an email address when I was like 8. You know, I most kids have internet and like iPads and stuff from like birth, it seems like.
So
right?
I got a question for you. Is this a foreign concept then? Because I was thinking about this the other day, where we owned, growing up, and I sound like an old man, but we owned movies like DVDs and CDs, and there was a physical, tangible thing there that you had, and there was a connection to it, where if I wanted to listen to a CD, or watch a movie, I would go over, I'd physically grab that copy, I'd put it in the DVD player, and then we'd watch it, and you'd probably watch any number of movies that you owned 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which was great. But for the most part, ownership has kind of gone out.
Yep.
Netflix model's in, which is great. You spend most of your time probably scrolling for what to watch rather than actually watching something. But the convenience is there. You don't have all of the stuff that you used to have. So there's that element of it, which I love that idea. But I also wonder, is there a lack of connection there? Because you don't have that tangible thing that, like, oh, this is my copy of this album that
it means something to me.
Yeah, there's a connection to that physical, tangible good. And again, I've literally been thinking about this like over the weekend.
Yeah.
But because it came up in conversation. With my wife, and I were driving, and I own my car and she leases hers. Ooh. Okay.
Oh,
so my
hot
car
topic.
Yeah. Well, no, just like my car, I got a nickname for it. I call it Battle Cat.
Right.
It's a He-Man reference from back in the day. And I was joking with her, and I'm like, "Oh, do you got a name for your car?" And she's like, "No." She's like, "Because it doesn't really feel like mine, because she's leasing it."
Because it's not.
And I was like, "Oh, it's really interesting. You're right. This doesn't feel like our car because it's not our car."
Yeah.
And that's what kind of sent me down this rabbit hole of ownership versus the leasing or membership model, or because there's pros and cons on either side, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And having that connection, like with my vehicle, is fun and silly and expensive.
Ultimately, yeah, expensive. For
all
sure.
of those kind of things. But I think that does that sort of framework apply to the world in another sense? Well, whereas if there's no ownership of anything, does that then forego any sort of like connection, responsibility? Like, is there an element to that that's detrimental?
Lots of thoughts on that. I think, from my perspective, like I still, like, I didn't have internet until I was like 8 or 9 or so, like that. Like, I just grew up in a place that was far away. So that's the only reason why I didn't. But to your point.
It's funny how you talk about it as if it's like running water.
Yeah.
I didn't have internet till I was 8.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Right?
I did. And then when I did have internet, I only had cold water because it was dial up. I didn't have hot water, like high speed, anyways, whatever. Yeah. So yeah, in terms of what you're saying, because we're moving from ownership to access, right? We're moving now onto to networks and these types of things. Everything's collective. I would contrast and say that your car having the name Battle Axe is about
Battle Cat.
Cat.
Battle Cat.
My bad. Sorry, everybody. Battle Cat is that ultimately is fulfillment. That's ultimately what it does. It adds fulfillment to your life, some level of like, yeah, this is mine, and I'm going to take care of it. I have ownership and responsibility over this, collection of material, and that in some way fulfills you, right? And so I think if we contrast that with what's going on in the millennial generation, where no one owns anything, we don't own a car, we don't own movies, we don't own music. When's the last time I bought a CD, whatever it may be, and everything is moving that way. We'd agree. I think in that sense, that generation also has a huge depression and anxiety thing. And as much as that's to do with social networks and all that, I also think a huge part of that is exactly what you're talking about, is that no one owns anything. So no one feels any attachment to anything. Now, let me just digress and say that your car, what do you drive?
Mazda CX-7.
Let's go. I like it.
T4 engine. That's a 4-cylinder turbo, which is like super lame.
No idea. You have a certain level of attachment to that. There's meaning on that. Like just right there, how you just went in like, well, okay, yeah, listen, it's a Mazda, but it's X, Y, Z, P, and Q. There's meaning on that. So as humans,
so the lack of meaning does tie into the sort of the lack framework of meaning and the models that are kind of being rammed down our
absolutely.
Our throat, right?
We assign meaning. Does
that also go with, sorry to cut you off,
yeah.
But does it also go with sort of the rebirth of the record store?
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I think it's rebirth of the record store. I think it's going to be rebirth of the coffee shop. I think it's going to be rebirth of the barber shop. Like, and those are a little bit different, but it's all around community, culture, ownership, right? Yeah. I have this means so much. That's why retro's coming in. That's why people actually want to buy a tape player. So I think we assign meaning to things. If we have no ownership, we can't assign meaning to anything. Life literally becomes meaningless. And I know those are distant concepts, but I do think there's a connection there that's interlooped. And I think it leads to a lot of anxiety and depression, man, like honestly. And that's why I think another thing to tie all these conversations in is that entrepreneurship is growing so much. It's like, well, I don't own anything. Can I own a business? Like, what's something I can create and build? Because again, even relationships,
driven by purpose.
Driven by purpose. Like, we don't have the same relationships we used to have. Where, dude, I want a date. I can get 6 dates tonight on Bumble. I can get it popping real quick. Yeah. And that doesn't mean the same thing. Sex doesn't mean the same thing as it used to. So intimacy is undervalued now. No one is addressing the human need of intimacy the way that we once were. So again, those are just business opportunities. All I'm saying is that all of these things, much to do with ownership and connection and fulfillment and purpose and meaning, are all lacking.
Are kind of been lost.
They're
like
gone.
I miss did you go into a video store? Were they all gone by the time? Okay.
Yeah. I went to some Blockbusters, man, for sure. Yeah.
So when my wife and I were talking about this with the girls, I was like, I miss the ceremony of like, what do you want to do tonight? Oh, let's go rent a movie. And we'd go walk to the video store. You'd kind of look at all the shelves and kind of pull it out. And at the time it seemed like sometimes it could seem like an inconvenience.
Yeah.
But now there's the ceremony of that has kind of been lost. And truthfully, I kind of miss it for the most part. Because now, again, you can just kind of scroll endlessly and look at these titles, and it doesn't
mean anything.
Yeah. That element of life is kind of gone.
Is kind of gone. And the other thing about that interaction that you have with that product is that, like, there's an experience of walking in a store. There's an experience of interaction with the people that are at that store. Are you guys on DoorDash or like Foodora or anything like that? So like the same thing. If I go to Body Energy Club, I'm getting way more out of it than if I just get it by Foodora.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. And that's why your business is so successful. Because I don't want to yes, it's easier and the marginal cost is almost nothing for me to just get it to my door, but I actually want to go there and be in that environment.
Hearkening to yesteryear?
What?
I said, are we hearkening to yesteryear? Like, when I was a kid, things were so much better.
Well, I don't, we might be, but literally when I was a kid, this is how it was. So in a sense, we're not. I'm just trying to observe human behavior.
I think identifying that as something that's lacking though, and seeing if there's a creative way to incorporate it into a business model and ultimately monetize it.
Hell yeah.
Is where clearly there's opportunity, and not nefariously, although I'm sure that will ultimately happen.
Yep.
But I think that capitalizing on that sort of need that we've identified.
So a need for connection and community in a sense.
Yeah.
which are,
Yeah.
again, we want to talk about differentiators. Community is everything. And I'm sure you guys are talking about it internally. I know all these other businesses are talking about it. How are you going to, how does Body Energy go about creating community and creating connections with its users and consumers?
Well, we're very proactive on that front. So we reach out to any and all of the boutique fitness around us. We have strategic partners in the city that we work with, whether it's our meals that we co-pack and come up with recipes for, or our bottled juices with the juice truck.
Awesome.
We collaborate with them. The collaborations are always fun. We're doing a new one here coming up with a local vegan food company, Air in Ireland. We're working with on something that's going to be awesome.
Cool.
So that's how we create community, but within our own ecosystem, our rewards programs, almost gamifying the customer experience has been completely key to customer retention is what we're talking
Lifetime
about.
value.
Yeah. And you if we're not reinventing that customer, at the end of the day, there's a bunch of stuff that we sell that people can get somewhere else and online. You have to be creative and create that loyalty and that user experience. Otherwise you're going to go the way of the dodo bird, right?
Go the way of the dodo bird. Yeah.
There's an old reference.
Yeah. Dodo bird's a bird that used to exist, kids, and it doesn't anymore. So I think that's the key to unlocking a collective identity here in Vancouver. That's what I think it is.
Interesting. Yeah.
Think being the keyword. I don't know. I just have a suspicion that that's kind of the way to go. What do you guys look for when you're looking at other businesses like a fitness club, a cycle club, or I don't know, I'm just making things up. What do you look for in those organizations and those people that you're like, I don't know, we want to, like, what did you see in Juice Truck? I can look at Juice Truck and you can look at Juice Truck and I can look at Zach and be like, that's awesome. But we're coming from that at different angles. What's the angle that you look for when coming at it from a community perspective?
Keep in mind, I cold called them out of the blue.
No way.
I didn't know them. So this is going back probably 6 years ago.
That is awesome.
We had our own juicing kitchen and we did everything ourselves. Came up with the recipes, had our own staff and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't our core business. So we sort of entertaining the idea on, okay, how could we potentially outsource this? So we had a couple conversations with a couple different people that were fundamentally disappointing with regards to, just the nature of like, okay, you get an idea of when you talk to somebody on the phone, what's this relationship going to be like? And are they forward thinking? Are they like-minded? Do they work as hard as we do? And I think ultimately it was the first couple conversations and the email exchanges that we had with them where I realized, okay, these guys are on the same page as us.
Yeah.
They have a similar sort of vision, mission. They're passionate about what they do, and we can work with them / marry them, because really that's what you're doing.
That's what it is
on any of those collaborations, right? So, and that was a great decision because it allowed us to focus on what it is that we do best, right? So that was the secret sauce there. Those conversations are still ongoing as well too. Like we're constantly reaching out to companies, whether it be manufacturers or other brands and stuff like that. And every now and then you come across somebody here kind of like, I thought I wanted to work with those people, but I just don't think that we click. It's no different than dating someone, right? You kind of like, wow, this just isn't
like, you're cool.
Yeah, this just isn't working, even in the initial kind of like 5-minute conversation.
Yeah, you go on the date, you're like, I need to leave. So someone fake call me real quick. I need to get out of here.
This is going to be a long one.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, really, really interesting, man. So I wanted to switch gears here a little bit because I did want to get your thoughts. You run a supplement company at the end of the day, right? I mean, you're a retail supplement company, which is awesome. There's a lot of snake oil in that industry for sure. But there's a couple companies that like really do it right. You guys being one of them. And the only other one that like I really kind of stand behind is On It, which we talked about on an academy in Austin, Texas. How they kind of go, just whether it's just like going into their ingredient lists or whether it's how they communicate the true value of their product or whether it's there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in this industry all the time, right? So how do you, I'm interested, two-part question. How do you, Rick, actually think about the human optimization and the supplement industry? And then how does Body Energy Club approach it? Because you clearly have done it right, but I don't know how.
Well, I think in Canada in general, we're very fortunate. Any products that are sold in our industry have to go through what's called the natural product. They have to have an NPN, natural product number, which means they need to be licensed by Health Canada, which means they have to have human clinical trials in order to prove that they actually do anything, which has helped mitigate any of that sort of snake oil products that at one point in time perhaps were all over the industry in one way, shape, or the other. Also, just the fact that as a business, we're responsible for so many, we're responsible for our brand. I'm responsible for my own family, but ultimately like our employees and our employees' lives. So it's really important to us to not misrepresent anything or get involved with anything that's sort of maybe untoward in the, like a product that used to be sort of, gray in the market or anything like that. It's a risk versus reward. And for us, it's just not worth it.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So on the other side of that, I think it's an exciting time in the industry when you see brands like Onnit or Vega or any of those companies sort of reinventing or inventing new categories.
Super cool.
And looking at it more from, okay, sure, this product is good for you in one sense as an individual. How does it help with regards to the performance side? How does this help with regards to the environmental side?
Right.
There's all of these different kind of touch points that brands are now having to look at in order to differentiate themselves. And again, it's the consumer and the market actually benefits from all of that simultaneously.
It's a win-win-win situation. Yeah. It's funny how if you go back to your morals, you go back to what you think is true, it's often a win-win-win.
Yeah.
Like if you're thinking long-term, or if you're just thinking at anything that isn't tomorrow, and you really go with what you believe is right, I'm just noticing it ends up being a win-win-win. It's like telling someone the truth.
Yeah.
Do you look fat in that dress? Well, a little bit. Maybe you don't wear it out. She puts another dress on. She looks amazing. You have an amazing night. You're like, hey, look at that. I don't know. Not analogous at all. But in the sense of like, listen, you be straight up with your customers. You go with the brand or you go with the products that maybe cost more, or whatever it may be, or the products or the ingredients that are truly what they're saying they're going to be. You build brand loyalty over the long term.
Yeah.
You build that customer base over the long term. And I don't care. I don't have to worry about, like, if you're co-signing someone, I don't have to go back. I don't have to look at it. I'm at the store, look at the brand name. Okay, this seems legit. Let me Google it. I go on Reddit. I don't have to do all that work. Because consumers do that work. I do that work.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe. But if I go into this spot, I already have the trust. I've already developed the trust. It's cool. I don't have to worry about it. It's less effort. It's less energy. And it's just easier for me to get to the till, frankly.
Well, like I said, we worry about it, right?
Exactly.
Like, again, if someone was to, if there was a product or a brand that wasn't representative of what we wanted to do, we have more to risk than anyone.
Than
right?
anyone else, yeah, for sure.
So we do as much due diligence. But again, in Canada, we're very fortunate that Health Canada kind of helps regulate all of that, so that the end user is ultimately protected, right?
What about yourself, man? How do you think about human optimization? How do you think about supplements? What have you tried? What are you currently working with? Where's your head around that?
Well, I'm spoiled, right?
Right, of course, yeah.
Where do you want to start?
Listen, let's go into the whole thing. We'll start another hour right now. Quick.
Yeah. So the mushroom category is something that really is exciting in the industry. Huge fan of lion's mane and of cordyceps would be the two kind of ones that are sort of leading the way. Started with reishi though. That'd be the first one that actually came out.
Okay, so
with regards to its immune boosting properties. And
let's start with lion's mane a little bit. Like what is that? Why do I care?
So lion's mane, and keep in mind, if you want to get an expert on to talk about the 6,000 products that we sell.
So Rick, you're oh, and we will, by the way. The podcast space, licensed to be wrong.
Yeah.
Licensed to be wrong. I cannot be held against anything I say.
So broad strokes would be lion's mane's ultimately championed for cognitive function.
Cool.
I think there's some evidence to show that it helps with neurogenesis. I know that guys like Paul Stamets are delving into the benefits of it being used for help with dementia, Alzheimer's, all of those kind of things. So that's something that's really popular in the stores right now. I think even Onnit uses that as well too. So I'm not super familiar with their product selection anymore, but cordyceps is another really good one as well too.
Okay.
I'm more of an endurance athlete now, so I kind of tend to focus on products that have benefits for that. Beetroot powder is another
beetroot powder.
Well
okay.
too. Yeah. Helps. It's a vasodilator, but it helps without, so it dilates your vascular system.
Got it.
Think Viagra.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
But for your whole body.
Cool.
Increases blood flow, but it does it without oxygen uptake from the bloodstream.
Ooh.
So it's particularly good for endurance athletes in that
I
sense.
see.
So anyone who's doing cycling, running, any of those things, beetroot powder is a great addition to their repertoire of products. But then there's your basics. Like, look, if you come in the store and we're like, hey, you know what? I just want to be healthy. What are you going to take? You're going to take a solid multivitamin. It doesn't matter or if you're on a paleo, vegan, any sort of diet. These are kind of fundamental core products. Omega-3, omega-6. There's some really good vegan ones coming out with algae-based omega, or fish oil is obviously the most popular. Your green supplements that are wildly popular as well too. And then probiotics would be the next category that's really, really taken off. You hear people like Dr. Rhonda Patrick talk about it on Rogan's podcast and stuff like that, who know far more than I do about it. But it's fascinating to be part of an industry where you hear all of this, the new science about the gut-brain connection, which is like so cool in the sense that you think you're a lot more autonomous with regards to the decisions that you make for your diet, when really ultimately you're far less in control of that than you think you are. With your gut biome kind of driving your food cravings and what it is that you want. So the importance of that healthy gut biome
is everything.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I know. It's like because there's neural connections in the gut the same way there's neural connections in the brain. Like there's that's what's it called? Go with your gut.
Yeah.
Go with your gut. It's like, duh. Yeah. Of course, go with your gut.
Yeah. The simplest way, like it obviously gets super complicated, far more complicated than I'm qualified to speak to, but it's as simple as if you start eating salad. Yeah. Within like a couple days, what you find is you start craving salad. Duh. If you start eating, whatever, why is that? The bacteria in your gut that would feed on that proliferate because they have an adequate food source for it. Therefore, they kind of tell you, hey, the last time you had that, we really enjoyed that. Let me have more of that.
Which happens subconsciously.
100%. Yeah. Like this is not something that that you are in control of in any way, shape, or form. From the outset, you kind of need to sort of make those decisions ultimately. But that's a fascinating. That's a monumental shift in our industry in the last 5 years. I would say that's really kind of taken off. All of the major brands have come out with a variety of different probiotics and prebiotics geared around this new science. Yeah, that's coming out. So.
Where are some of the resources you'd point people towards as it pertains to, gut health, nutrition, et cetera, et cetera? Who are you listening to in that space?
Yeah, so probably the most popular people that are out there. So mushroom category is obviously dominated by Paul Stamets, who's a fascinating human in and of himself, and a true expert in the field. Dr. Rhonda Patrick on the probiotic front would be probably the leader on that category. Yeah. And ultimately brands are doing a really good job at sort of supplying that information, not just to us, but to their direct to their customers as well too, right?
Yeah, education's huge.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the library of information has undergone a monumental shift with regards to providing resources to anyone and everyone, right?
Yeah, totally. I think, and you guys do a good job of that. I think, like you have that new stretch body lab.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. So you guys there's a couple of directions you're going in the supplement space and in the smoothie space. I'm working with the juice truck and in the juice space. What's this new stretch body lab? Because that seems like new territory.
It is new territory. So it started as a bit of a pet project for me. So
Okay.
I'd sort of seen this style of stretching elsewhere, and when I had the space in the Gastown store, didn't really know what I was going to do with it. We were thinking maybe opening up a naturopathic clinic or some sort of other synergy. And ultimately, this strain counter strain model for stretching seemed like something that at first I was kind of like, well, who's going to pay to get stretched? But then I was like, wait a minute, I can't stand stretching. I can't stand yoga.
Really?
I can't stand any of that stuff. Yeah. Like I really struggle with it. And I think and here's the reason why. As an endurance athlete, I'm already training 5 days a week.
Yeah.
If anything, if I'm going to go do a yoga class, ultimately the class that I need to do is called a yin class. It's where you kind of sit down and do static stretching and you hold the poses for 3 up to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
For any sort of given yoga studio, those classes tend to be a bit of an afterthought. And the last thing I need to do is go do like a power yoga class because I've already done a 3-hour bike ride or legs at the gym or something along those lines. So there was sort of a mental shift for me where I was kind of like, yeah, the only thing better for me than stretching is have someone else do it for me, which has been great. Completely new model for me to get into because it's more of a studio concept than anything. Than it is retail.
So strain, counter strain.
Counter strain.
Tell me about it.
PNF stretching is what it is.
You just went right over my head.
Yeah, so it's basically resistance stretching. So
Okay.
So we'll get you into a stretch pose. You'll resist the practitioner for 5 seconds, upwards of 10 seconds, and then you'll relax, and then we'll dig a little deeper and we'll push a little further. Ultimately, what it does is it helps reprogram your brain to know that it's safe for your body to stretch further.
Oh, okay.
It's stretching is actually the only scientific form of stretching that actually is proven to really help in any of the things that you think stretching is for. But it has more to do with retraining your brain, that it's safe to push your body past a certain point than you are, rather than actually elongating the muscle. There's a bit of a misconception there about what's actually going on with regards to what your muscle's doing. So
please
baffling.
Enlighten. Like yeah, there's so many misconceptions. Like I was listening to a podcast on foam rolling and delayed onset muscle soreness and like the research around foam rolling. Like, like it feels good and you're moving your fascial. I don't know. Fascial stretch therapy? What's it called? Josh, what's it called? Fascia. Yeah. You're moving your fascia around in certain ways, but like you're not actually, you're just alleviating delayed onset muscle soreness, but it's not actually improving your recovery time or your turnaround time. It just probably just feels good a little bit. It moves the blood.
Yeah. DOMS is a weird one.
Yeah.
They actually don't really know like what it is or how to mitigate it or any of those things really.
Yeah.
I was doing some research on that and one of the there was a double-blind study done on it, and one of the main things was perceived pain threshold.
Yeah.
Which is completely psychological.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with a hot bath, yoga, stretching, supplementation, any of those things.
Yeah.
If you simply had a higher pain tolerance, physiologically or mentally, then you had a less likelihood of experiencing DOMS, which is bizarre.
Crazy, right? I know. And it's like, even things like willpower, for instance, like the science of willpower, like, oh, you're born with willpower, you're born without willpower, is like completely false. Like that's completely false. You train willpower.
Yeah.
You know, like all these things that are like, we thought they were a certain way are actually completely a different way.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it happens in the supplement industry as well. You're like, oh shit.
It's become a huge part of training. RPE is a huge relative perceived effort is a huge thing in cycling training. And it's becoming more and more popular for people to kind of train around and to learn what it is and to know, like, you're really ultimately training yourself to be uncomfortable for a longer period of time. Period. Which is mind blowing.
It's like, oh, I thought I was training the muscle to have more of a capacity, and you're like, well, there is some of that, but really what you're doing is like expanding your pain threshold. There's a company that does they hook electrodes up to your muscles and just gets you to do squats or whatever it is, and it's basically you're at 100% capacity. It stimulates the muscle artificially to go to 100% because you wouldn't go to 100% naturally, right? So they've done tests of like a leg press, for instance, like, all right, do your max. Okay, now we're going to hook this up to you, and your legs are essentially going to shoot up. Oh my God. And you're going to be able to do 20% more, 30% more. Yeah. And what that does is when you take it off, you can then do 20% more, 30% more, because you've told your brain, as you have just illustrated with this stretch, you've told your brain that you can go there. Yeah. You can go there. Now that I've gone there, now that I've expanded the boundaries, now I can push that 20, 30% more.
It's a weird world, right? Like you can apply that sort of, that mysterious mental component of fitness, and then you could shift that to all of the new studies coming out about psychedelics and that whole category as well too. Yeah, which is another interesting one that I think in the next probably 3 to 5 years could shift towards our industry. Yeah, don't know. Yeah, but yeah,
totally, man. It's expanding what's possible, just expanding what's possible. Period. So we'll wrap up here, but I want to ask, you've innovated and you're moving with trends, but I also feel there's a big side of you that has some unpopular opinions. What are some of your unpopular opinions? And I'm just going to leave this completely wide open for you because I'm just interested to hear. And what's your rationale behind them?
I have a lot of very strong, remarkably uninformed opinions.
I'll take it. Licensed to be wrong, my friend.
you're referring to. Geez, I don't know specifically.
Sure. Let's dive in.
This conversation could go in a million different directions.
I know, I'm a little bit scared.
What's an unpopular opinion?
Maybe as it pertains to supplementation, as it pertains to business, as it pertains to optimizing yourself, as it pertains to mental capacity, as it pertains to parenting.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, look, my world revolves around Gastown, which is the downtown east side. Yeah. So this is far less broad and very geographically specific. So
I'll take it.
For listeners, it could be completely uninteresting, but having been in Gastown for 2 years now, when we opened that location there, I built an office in the back of the store. One of the things that I found remarkably exciting about that neighborhood was the sense of community that was there. Right. There's a ton of mom and pop businesses that are there. All the neighbors kind of knew one another, whether it be in boutique fitness or the restaurants that are there or anything along those lines. I was really amazed with the sense of community that was there. 2 years later, that community is still there. However, as a retailer, my frustrations with regards to the state of the neighborhood, the shoplifting is a huge thing for us. Violence in our stores. We've had people pull needles on our staff in the store. Theft is a huge one as well too. And just the minimal improvement in that neighborhood. And if anything, it almost seems to be going backwards over there. And I don't know what the solution is other than I went to a meeting the other day with, the city was there and one of the city councilors were there and they presented their 30-year plan for the area, which we're 5 years into. Which I said, well, that's great. But in 5 years, it appears to me as though things have gotten worse. And this 5-year plan that you've outlined seems to be along the lines of business as usual and nothing's going to change, like consolidating the problems down there, the SROs and all of those kind of things and kind of cornering it into that little part of town. And I don't see any sort of improvement or solution going on down there. And that's my day to day, right? Like I walk out into a part of Vancouver that a lot of people don't see on a daily basis. They kind of do a drive-by and you step out into despair for the most part. Yeah. with very little big thinking, big ideas on how to solve the problem there. And I think there's an element of, at the local level with regards to the government, the provincial level and the federal level, that has to do with more of trying to make everybody happy and not making anybody happy at the same time. And a lack of vision from the city of Vancouver's point of view to kind of go, hey, this isn't a Vancouver problem. This is a Canadian problem. Like, Vancouver has now become a destination for, they've created a honeypot over there, basically, in my mind, is what they've created. And people are coming from all over and setting up shop. And that's where all of the access points are, which is fine. But without the resources from the federal government or from the provincial government in order to, carry their fair share with regards to the problems, I don't see any end sight with regards to a solution for the downtown east side, unfortunately. Because I think there's a huge problem down there with regards to trauma, addiction, education, abuse, violence, all of those things. And if it's incumbent upon the city of Vancouver to figure that out, it's only going to get worse before it gets better. And not only that, but like, nobody in the meeting that I was at with the city of Vancouver really saw it as, they kept calling it the opioid crisis. Yet nobody really seemed to be dealing with it as a crisis, which a crisis to me means all hands on deck, all resources. Hey, everybody needs to step in and help out. And it just seems to me like down there's a bunch of bureaucratic Band-Aid solutions to try to keep everybody happy. And it's been like that since I moved here.
For sure.
It's frustrating.
So who's gonna grab the steering wheel here?
There's a couple of really good counselors in the city of Vancouver who are fighting an uphill battle against everyone that's there. Peter Fry would probably be most notable. He's the guy from the representative from Strathcona, who I believe is from there. At least he's been there for 30 years now. He sort of is forward thinking with regards to solutions and big ideas, but I don't know, it's government, right? So it's one of those things when you look at fellas, like when you think of big ideas, you think of sort of ideas that fundamentally shift the way that we do things. And a lot of the times that's an outsider. Corny, cliche analogy now is Elon Musk, right? Knew nothing about cars. Hey, let's come up with electric cars. Why wasn't it the auto industry?
Yeah, why wasn't it Henry Ford?
Well, because they're happy with status quo, right?
Yeah.
So I think on a lot of these big issues, we're going to need somebody like in the States has Andrew Yang right now, who's running for president, who has a ton of big ideas, who I think is super exciting. It's unfortunate that he's in American politics and not Canadian politics. But I think that it's going to take not just one person, but a team of people with that energy and personality and big ideas to come along and offer any sort of solution.
Well, you're not in politics, but it sounds like you have a team with a lot of different energy, different ideas, and a forward-thinking paradigm that could make a difference.
Yeah,
just saying.
I'm not the guy.
I know. But I'm just saying. There's the doors open.
I'm far too abrasive,
of course,
as a personality to sort of get into politics. But
of course, cool.
I could be the man behind the curtain.
Yeah,
for sure. So let me know when you're ready to run.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pass on that one, but we'll try to figure out something. We'll lobby Andrew to come up here and make some impact or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. There's we live at
Canadians for Andrew Yang.
Canadians.com.
There you go.
I love it. Cool. Cool, Rick. I appreciate it so much, man. I appreciate you coming by and chopping up about essentially everything and anything. Where do you want to direct people? To the store, to you?
bodyenergyclub.com, or
Cool.
we have our retail stores scattered all around Vancouver, Burnaby, Coquitlam, Kitsilano. Just opened a new location on 4th Ave as well too.
Cool, man.
And then Hollywood and Vine and in Los Angeles and West Hollywood as well too.
Cool. Thanks, Rick. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Cheers.